What's going on, guys? This is Rob, and welcome to another episode of Media vs. Comics, where we take a character from the comic book industry who has appeared in a TV show or a film or in some kind of media, and we compare them to their comic book counterpart, and we ask the question, which one's better, the comic book version or the media version? And in this video, we're going to be focusing on the Kingpin. Starting off, what we're going to do here is we're going to focus on the Frank Miller Kingpin, because the Kingpin from the Netflix series is based largely on Frank Miller's Kingpin. Now, what's really cool about Frank Miller's Kingpin is that he is brutal, he's intelligent, and he's cunning. I mean, he is the villain. He is the Kingpin of crime, and there's no doubt about that. And none of this, there was no element of this that was more obvious than in Frank Miller's graphic novel or his series, Daredevil Born Again. And this is considered by virtually all standards of measurement to be the quintessential Daredevil story by Frank Miller. This is the story when Karen Page, who had left the partnership of Foggy Nelson and Matt Murdock and pursued a life in Hollywood, ultimately devolved down into heroin addiction and eventually into, adult-oriented films. And when she was strapped for cash, she sold the identity of Matt Murdock. Now, eventually, the identity of Matt Murdock made its way up the ranks and it was purchased by Kingpin. And Kingpin waged a one-man war against Matt Murdock. He had the bank seize his house. He had the IRS freeze his bank accounts. I mean, he did it all. Totally waged a war against Matt Murdock. And to me, this really set the standard. But the other half of Kingpin from Frank Miller's Daredevil is that he's an understanding person. He also has kind of a softer side, especially when it comes to his wife, Vanessa. Now, Vanessa is a really interesting character in the realm of Kingpin, because when it comes to her relation to him, she doesn't like the fact that he's in crime. And in fact, she didn't know he was a criminal when she got married to him, which is a really big turn from what we saw in the Netflix series. But the fact remains here that when it comes to the aspect, when it comes to the concept of Frank Miller's Kingpin, he is the quintessential criminal. I mean, he is the guy that stands the test of time when it comes to breaking the laws. And one of the coolest aspects is that he always uses his ties to politics, to judges, so on and so forth, to keep himself out of the criminal, out of jail. He keeps himself away from basically being directly tied to his actions. He is, in effect, the Michael Corleone of the Marvel Comics. Now, in the Netflix version, I love this version of Kingpin. I mean, Vincent D'Onofrio, in my opinion, he was the star of the Netflix show. And I know it was called Daredevil, and that's cool. Matt Murdock was a great character, but Vincent D'Onofrio, I think, stole the show. I mean, he ran away with it in spectacular fashion. Initially, I was a little concerned about his character. I thought he was going to be somewhat of just a genius criminal. We didn't really know how he rose through the ranks. He was just this hidden hand. He was the guy in the shadows. We didn't really know how it was that he came to be who he was, but the fact that he was in the shadows, the fact that people didn't speak his name, otherwise somebody who was tied into him, who was watching, would kill the person who said his name, I think was a fantastic concept to throw in with his character. It basically told us that Kingpin doesn't have to be there in order for Kingpin's, authority to be known by anybody in Hell's Kitchen. That, I think, was one of the most important elements of his character in the Netflix series. In addition to that, we saw the brutal side when he smashed a man's head off using a car door. How hardcore is that? How brutal is that? That right there, I think, really gave us the dark, sadistic, do whatever it takes, psychopathic Kingpin. But the fact remains that with the Netflix series, one of the best lines of Kingpin, I think, is when he's sitting in the police escort vehicle and he's being taken away by the FBI, and he goes through the story of the man who was traveling and the ill will that was set upon him and so on and so forth. And he says that throughout his life, he always thought that perhaps he was the traveler, he was somebody else or someone other than the ill will itself. But it turns out, from his perspective, he is the ill will. It is in his nature to be dark. When you compound that with the fact that we got his absolute story as a child, we got that version where he had effectively killed his dad. He had beat his father to death with a hammer. To me, that really established just how dark Wilson Fisk can go, just how dark Kingpin can get with regards to his characters. So the question has to be asked, if we have to pick one, if we have to choose between the Netflix version and the comics version, which one comes out on top? I think we can all pretty much agree here that at the end of the day, it's the Vincent D'Onofrio Netflix version. And I bear no bones. I regret nothing. Now, those of you guys who disagree, tell me why. Tell me why you think that the comic book version's better than the Netflix version. But while we haven't seen a whole lot of Wilson Fisk, while we only seen what amounts to maybe half a season in terms of actual character appearances in the TV show, his character development was second to none. His establishment as a brutal, sadistic, but intelligent and cunning villain was second to none. It was some of the best character development that I've ever seen with regards to any kind of superhero in the Marvel Cinematic Universe. And I would go as far as to say, of all the villains that we've seen in the Marvel Cinematic Universe so far, of all the characters that we've seen in the Marvel Cinematic Universe so far, Kingpin has to be the very best, just by the basis of the fact that at the end of the day, when it's all said and done, that he's just a man. He's a guy that can be shot and killed just like anybody else, yet somehow he appears to us as being superhuman. With that being said, I'm going to go ahead and bring this video to an end. I hope you guys enjoyed it. If you did, let me know, and I will catch you guys later. Peace.